Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Viaka Podcast. This is where we bring you conversations with inspiring founders, investors, and builders who have ties to the MENA region, who are making waves in the entrepreneurship space and around the world. Before we dive in, today's episode, a quick word about Viaka. So, we're a global platform that scouts, invests, and supports exceptional MENA connected founders. Through our angel network of over 80 active investors, we've backed over 10 companies since launching in March of 20, deploying close to $600,000 alongside leading US investors. We're essentially democratizing early stage investing with checks as low as $1,000, making it accessible for operators and professionals who want to back world class talent. So if you're interested in joining us, visit viaka.net or email hello@viaka.net. Today's guest is Thierry Ajaltouni, a founder who's rebuilding the infrastructure of venture capital itself. After working as an LP at Terralist Capital and spending 4 years at Oliver Wyman advising fund managers, Thierry saw firsthand how VCs were investing in AI companies while running their own operations on a little bit of an outdated system. So he co-founded Vessel, an AI-powered platform that's transforming how venture funds engage with their investors through branded storytelling and automation. Thierry, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Ramsey.
Before we get started, a little bit about what you're doing today, I want to kind of, set the tone, understand a little bit more about who you are, a little bit about your background. I know you moved around a little bit. You kind of grew up in one place, you moved from one place to another. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about that. Where are you from? Where you grew up?
Yeah, sure. So originally Lebanese. I was born in Beirut, but had a chance to live in Qatar, Egypt, Greece, Dubai, and then finished high school in Lebanon before moving to Canada for university. My dad had immigrated to Canada in the 80s, and his, sort of dream was to send his like unborn children to McGill University, before he went back to the Middle East because the Middle East was booming. So when I graduated high school, I had sort of this, big pressure on me to get into McGill. That didn't work, unfortunately. Started my university career at the University of Toronto, Mississauga. Ended up getting good
Okay.
grades, so I was able to transfer. Um, and yeah, studied finance and information systems, and did a bunch of internships in finance before starting my career at a fund of funds and then working at Oliver Wyman.
Okay. I mean, you went to UTM and then you made his dream come true, right? You had to transfer, or what was
I mean, there wasn't. I
UTM
don't know
wasn't
if
good enough?
for the folks that know Mississauga, there isn't much action there, so it's very much focused on studying. Um, it was a great place, a great time, but I guess I did want to see what McGill was all about.
Great. So you said he's finance, right?
Finance and information systems, which I don't know if they still teach it today, but that's sort of the that was the business side of like tech.
Okay. Oh, is this something you were passionate about? You knew you wanted to do this, or what was the drive for going to do finance?
I think like many folks in the Middle East, like I didn't really fit in those like boxes of like doctor, engineer, or lawyer, and
Okay.
if you if you don't fit into those boxes, like business is the other usual suspect. But no, ended up liking it a lot. Yeah, I wasn't good enough at math to be an engineer, and so like finance is just like easy enough math that like I could get by. Uh, yeah.
Okay. And so you started, and then after university, you started working at Oliver Wyman. What did you learn? What was your experience there?
Yeah, I learned a lot of like hard skills like building PowerPoints, building models, a lot of like client management skills. Um, and in terms of like industry exposure, I was working a lot with pension funds and asset managers, mostly private equity funds in the US. Um, so yeah, mostly honing like my hard skills, my soft skills, but also getting a lot of industry exposure that has served me a lot at Vessel.
And was building something that you knew you wanted to do, or you saw something was broken? Like, was this something you were thinking about for a long time, or did this something that come up? Like,
I wish I could say yes because that would make for a much better, I guess like story. But no, I guess I was. I don't know if like other folks in the Middle East could relate because we're like insecure overachievers. I thought like, oh, I'd keep getting more experience and then eventually I'd start something on my own. But the timing wasn't necessarily like you know, the best timing for me. I just had this opportunity to start Vessel, and it was hard to say no. Um, my co-founder Thomas, who was working at a multi-stage venture fund called Inovia, we had a chance to work together before my career at Oliver Wyman, at a place called Terralist Capital. And so when he approached me to start Vessel, it was like, I just couldn't say no. It was like too good an opportunity to pass on.
But how did the pitch come about? What how did that come out?
So at first we were like workshopping ideas, like we're like we want to build something in the fintech space, and we looked at different stuff like automating like applications for tax credits, uh, you know, which I think with AI now, like is you probably don't need like SaaS for that. Um, but then we ended up like landing on Vessel, and it made so much sense because we were both very familiar with the industry. We had a lot of like relationships in the industry. We understood the pain points, both from like the investor side, but also the fund manager side. Um, and the missing piece was sort of like hiring a tech team to build like the kind of product that we wish we had when we were on the investor side of things, investing in venture and private equity funds.
What were the things that were they using beforehand? Like what are you replacing today? So how did things used to run?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of change since then, but I mean, many firms still run the traditional way.
Yeah, of course. Of
So
course.
I guess we're replacing email in large part. So if you think of like the different like ways that a venture fund or a private equity fund interacts with their investors, first of all, they're marketing an investment product. So they're marketing a fund. They send a deck by email. Then, like, let's say the investor's interested, they send like subscription agreements by email for the investor to sign a contract, become an investor in the fund, and then it's the reporting on a quarterly basis. So there are a lot of funds that used to, and many of them that still operate this way. It's no longer secure because I guess like folks that do phishing are getting very sophisticated, so they could send wiring information by email and sort of like imitate what um, a payment or like banking like information would look like from a venture fund. Um, and the other like types of like tools that folks were using at the time and still use today is what we call data rooms and investor portals, which are essentially both of them are like file repositories, but for whatever reason there's like a different product for marketing a fund, different product for sending reports, even though it's essentially the same product. And those are essentially like they're glorified like Google Drives, very expensive, like a lot of like bells and whistles for the fund managers. But on the investor side, it's you know there's too many to like go log into with each venture fund, and it's not always the best experience. So we set out to rebuild an experience that was integrated, but also from the investor's point of view. Because I think all the tools that exist to date have been built from sort of the admin or fund manager side of things. Not to say that that's not also important, but the investor's point of view is also like super important. So we integrated that when we were starting Vessel.
Okay. And where it is today, can I give me an idea for what it is? So what can I do? Who's using it? How is it beneficial to me? Just give me an idea for.
Yeah, absolutely. So our clients are the fund managers, so VC fund, private equity funds, any kind of like private markets fund manager, like so think of other asset classes like private credit infrastructure that wants to offer a better experience to their investors, but also manage everything from one platform. So right now, like you know, funds are managing their investors with different tools that don't necessarily communicate. Vessel covers the entire sort of investment life cycle. I market a product, whether it's a fund or what we call a co-invest, which I'm happy to go into, onboarding investors. So having the investors provide their information for compliance purposes and then fill out subscription agreements. And then the reporting piece on a regular basis, like at least quarterly, to help investors like stay up to date on how their investment is performing. So think of, and I hate doing this, but like think of like sort of like Robinhood, or Sarwa, like for like a Middle East equivalent, but for the private markets, um, which for whatever reason didn't exist. Um, like I think there's a lot of like consumer type applications or even marketplaces
Mhm.
that have a great
Mhm.
user experience that didn't exist on the B2B side for venture funds. So that's what we set out to build, and it's also white label. So we don't appear anywhere. There's no like powered by Vessel or anything like that. The fund manager's brand is like front and center.
Okay, so how do they brand it? So they choose their own colors, they add their logos.
Exactly.
Is that how
Exactly.
it
I mean,
works?
even notifications are sent from their email domains. We don't
Okay.
appear anywhere. The goal is for like the investors to think that the fund manager like built it internally, and to be impressed. And
Why? Why take that approach?
because we don't want to own I mean, it's not that we don't want to own, like we're happy to interact with investors, but having been in a fund manager's shoes, we understand how important it is to own the relationship directly with your investors. We don't want to be, in the middle of it as a third party. And I guess from like a brand aspect and like messaging aspect, it's so much better when a fund manager owns all of that. You'll always have like some fund managers that want to outsource that kind of thing, and that's something we can support with. But we've sort of built the product in a way that we look invisible, and all the credit goes to our clients.
Great. Are there other competitors in the space today doing similar things to what you're doing?
Uh, Probably a lot of incumbents that do like one thing and like have like a bit more depth on certain pieces of the product that we cover, like a bit more bells and whistles. But I don't think any product has been built from the investor's point of view, or at least with the investor's point of view, like considered. Um, so
But
it is a I guess it is a space with a lot of like different tools, and there's often a lot of like trust building that we need to do with potential customers to convince them to come with us. But what makes it super compelling is the all-in-one for both you as a fund manager and your investors, because people do not want to have a dozen vendors. Like if they could do everything like with one
it
company,
doesn't what, sorry?
people
It
don't want to
doesn't.
deal with a dozen vendors. So it doesn't like,
Okay.
different software like that don't communicate, or like different service providers. If they can deal with like one sort of like entity, and that gets everything or a lot of things done like for their business, and then like the other like missing bits and pieces here and there can be done with like an LLM. I think that's what the industry is moving towards, um, because I guess part of it is like fee compression. You can't charge the same fees that you would before when you were raising funds. I mean, the mega funds don't have this issue because they have like sort of like an endless stream of management fees. But for smaller funds with small teams, like you can't keep solving like issues by adding a vendor, adding a team member. The goal is to like have leverage with one or two tools that can satisfy most of your needs.
And you mentioned before a number of times now from the investor's point of view. What does that specifically mean?
That so think of like pension funds or even high net worth investors that invest in VC or private equity funds. Um, their experience today is very bad. If they have an account with like Robinhood or Sarwa, like they're like, why don't I have something similar? And in private markets, why is it so archaic?
Mhm.
Why do I have to log into three different tools? Why do my different like if I'm in different fund managers, why do they each have different tools? How do I consolidate like all the reports that I get either by email or some sort of software? So it's not easy for them today, and the less easy it is for the investor, the less likely they are to back your next fund. Um, and I guess one thing that we do very well that I don't think others have done is we focus on the storytelling aspect. Um, so raising a fund is not about just sharing documents. Like here's my deck, here's like documents that you ask for. It's like it's about building conviction, and you can't really do that with like a file repository. So our platform is very much built to engage investors from the point that they get to know about your firm, your fund, all the way to the reporting side, which isn't just like numbers, but like here are the faces of the folks that you've backed. Here's like some video content of the entrepreneurs that the funds have backed that are building like these massive companies like and creating outcomes for the end investors. It's different than in public markets. Like people want to private markets. There's an interesting like aspect to it. You want to make the investor feel like they're sort of part of the journey of building like private companies that end up being massive public ones or ones that get acquired.
So Thomas is somebody you worked with? Does he have a background in technology? Like how, what?
uh, he,
That's kind of the question that's on my head. Like how did you guys obviously you were working a full-time job at the time.
yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, Thomas does not have a background in technology, but he had I guess a background in venture, so sort of close to technology. Like had
Okay.
a front row seat and like board seat, like seeing a lot of like very exciting companies like build product and grow. Companies like Wealthsimple, like Sonder, um, and Thomas is also like very skilled at fundraising. So we in our heads we're like, we'll raise the money, we'll hire the team, we'll build a product, and that's sort of exactly how it worked out, fortunately.
Okay, walk me through that a little bit. So, were you who was building? Did you just like you were working at a full-time job and you wanted to, outsource the MVP to a small team? Like how did things is that what happened?
We actually considered that. A lot of folks were
Okay.
going that route at the time, like hiring an agency like on the side as they were
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
in their full-time jobs. No, we took the risk. We quit our jobs. Um, um, we quit our jobs, and we were fairly confident we'd be able to raise money. And then the goal was to, with that money, we'd hire a team to build the product. Um,
Did you talk to people about being potential customers? Is that what like how are you so confident? Because the way, a lot of entrepreneurs today, they're building something on the side with the hopes that they'll be able to raise money. Were you so sure because of your industry and what you were doing that you were confident that you were going to be able to get some money, or did you pitch it to your prospects essentially before and you asked them, "Hey, would you pay for this?"
yeah, so we benefited from, and we're still benefiting from like a big trend where you have a lot of non-institutional investors. So think of like high net worth investors, like rich entrepreneurs that don't have
Mhm.
access to private equity yet. They mostly have like let's say a property, like public bonds and like public stocks, but they haven't had like enough exposure to the private equity like asset class. So we really benefited from that trend because we were building to help venture funds, private equity funds raise more capital from that channel, and it's something that was in high demand. Like fundraising was challenging when we started Vessel. Like for venture funds, it's still challenging today, especially if you're not one of the brand names. Uh, you know, Especially if you're an emerging manager. Even for the folks that have been like in the game for like 15 years, like raising money from institutions is not it's not like it's not a safe bet anymore. You sort of need to diversify like where you raise capital from. So yeah, we sort of like we pitched that product or that idea to folks that would directly benefit from it, and we were also, what's the word? I don't know if there's like an exact term for this, but like founder market fit or founder product fit. We were
Mhm.
solving pain points that we were like very familiar with.
Of course.
So um, the folks that backed us just trusted us to do it. And I guess the other like point that's worth mentioning, because we had been in the industry for a while, like the folks that backed us, like we had relationships with them. Um,
Who were the first backers? Were you spending some money on the side, working with an agency, and then they backed you, or the investment came before starting? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we raised money like just based on a deck. Uh,
Okay.
we were like one of the lucky ones, I
Every
guess.
entrepreneur's dream.
So yeah, that's right. I guess we fell into the
Great,
pre
great presentations, great slide decks.
exactly. We fell sort of in the pre-seed like sort of category, and we
Mhm.
were like we got backed by a fund called A4, based out of San Francisco. Like they sort of pioneered the pre-seed category. Inovia Capital, which was Thomas' like former employer, and is was one of a big design partner like for the product and still is today. Um, a fund out of the Middle East called BY Venture Partners. Um, that yeah, we're very fortunate. Like took a bet on us. Um, a couple others like a fund called Telegraph Health Partners like out of Europe, but they sort of launched the Canadian strategy since. I hope I don't forget anyone, but the rest was like mostly oh FJ Labs, FJ Labs. How could I forget?
I mean, you don't have to mention them. You don't have to mention them. How many would you say? How many investors in total?
I guess it was like five-ish funds, and then the rest was like angel investors from institutional investors like CDPQ, like Mubadala, and some tech entrepreneurs.
Okay. And how long have you guys been working on this for now? How long have you been working on Vessel?
Uh, the way that Vessel is today, maybe a year and a half, like, but we've been building the company like for 3 years now.
Um, in like how many employees are you guys today? How many clients? Can you share any of that
Yeah,
information?
absolutely. Yeah, we're at 15 employees right now.
Hmm.
And I think we're past like 70 clients now globally, from California all the way to Singapore.
And in terms of, are you guys on your, like what, in terms of fundraising today, where are you guys? How much money have you raised? I think also Viaka was part of the fundraising round. Maybe give me some context on that.
Yeah, yeah, we've raised close to $8 million US to date, and have ample amount of runway, which we're being very uh, I don't want to say too careful with, but there's a lot of things that are evolving in the industry today, like a lot of like advancements with AI. So we're sort of like taking a bit of a wait and see approach to understand how um, we sort of keep iterating on the product roadmap to stay relevant. Um, we might go out and raise more capital at some point, but I don't think companies that do triple, double, double get funded that easily anymore.
Was it triple, 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 double, double, or was it three triples? Or double?
I,
I forgot what the,
I think
or,
it's
th- or
I mean
triple, triple, double, double, double.
yeah,
Yeah.
but all that to say, yeah, folks build like very different companies like these days, and engineering teams, product teams are much more efficient, with tools like
Mhm.
Cloud Code. So
Mhm.
we don't need to go hire like 10 BD like 10 like go to market like folks, or like double our engineering team to get the growth we want to get. Um, and I guess one thing to point out, we're very like happy to get Viaka in like our latest round. Um, and
Yeah,
uh,
how did that come about? I mean, did you reach out to like how did it happen?
so not to take too long for this story, but it is an interesting one. Lace, which is part of the Viaka team,
Yeah.
a bit younger than I am, but we both went to McGill. We had the same professor that teaches a venture class. Shout out to Jiro at McGill, which became a close friend. And then like so Jiro introduced me to Lace, or Lace I guess reached out and said, hey, Jiro told me about you, and sort of started chatting with Lace and Hani. We didn't need like the I guess the capital from Viaka, but we saw them as a value add partner, and you know we made it like work, even though like they came in towards like the end of the round, and they've been a super like value add investor to have today. Like made like loads of intros, is using the product as well. Yeah, very happy we have Viaka on our cap table.
But are you currently part of the day-to-day operations? You're head of operations, obviously. What's the most difficult part about building this?
Yeah, so I'm anything that's client facing, that's not sales is what I own. I am
Okay.
still very much involved on the sales side. We are a lean team, so
Okay.
we wear different hats. Um, I think the challenge that we've like responded to fairly well because of our backgrounds and of our understanding of the industry is I guess managing timelines and urgency for different clients. Like we sometimes have like folks that sign with us and they're like, oh, I want to start like, accepting investors like tomorrow. It's like, how do we make that happen? And so, with like larger companies, sometimes like you're you're connected with like a support team or like an implementation team that even though like they're dedicated to you, do not understand like the business aspects of implementation. So implementation could take a bit longer. We don't have that issue, but we because we're a lean team, we have to stay on top of like different deadlines for different clients, and managing managing different priorities and making sure that we can uh, sort of make the product live as soon as possible. It is a very user-friendly product, so we have like fund managers that go in and like they do everything on their own. They don't need us, and that's great. That's like
Mhm.
what the product is built for, and who it's
Yeah,
built
of
for.
course.
But we understand that sometimes like you know folks operate differently in different organizations. So we're here to also provide like white glove service to make sure that they are able to get those to reach those like milestones, to get like successful outcomes with our product. So we work with our clients like very closely. We don't think of ourselves as like a like just software, like we're a vendor. It's
Hmm.
more so like an
Hmm.
extended part of the fund managers team. That's like the extent to which we go when it comes to getting like fund managers set up on our product.
They like is a fund manager constantly in contact with you, or they, there's back-to-back communication?
Yeah,
How
we
does it, are they
we're
recommending things for you guys? You
we're
should
on
do this, you
Slack.
should do that.
Yeah, we're on Slack and
Yeah.
WhatsApp with all of our clients. On a they can call us like at any time, like even though like it puts pressure on the team, like that's what we signed up for. That's the kind of company we're building, and all of our like
Hmm.
client facing like folks have industry experience. um, so you're not talking to someone that like learned a few concepts, that doesn't have like any scar tissue from like being an investor or being a fund manager, and that like reassures our clients a lot. um, but uh, to answer your point as well, like our we've made like our sort of like roadmap or like some client feedback public recently. We implemented different tools for that, so now our clients can sort of like vote on what some clients suggest. It's no longer siloed. That was a bit of a challenge before
Hmm.
actually. So we have somebody on the product
I think
side that's done a lot of like good good improvements on that front. So all that to say, like clients are very close to us. We are very close to clients.
mm, yeah, it's almost similar to. I mean, I don't know if you guys do this or not. You make a public roadmap of like, hey, these are the features that are going to come up. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it helps prioritize, right? If you have a lot of like clients that are
Yeah, of
screaming at
course.
you to sort of
Yeah.
get a feature built, it's probably because like it's a valuable feature.
What's next for Vessel? What are you guys aiming to build? What's the vision?
The vision is, any kind of manual workflow that exists in the industry today being like fully automated. So report creation, creation of marketing materials. Um, not to say there won't be a human in the loop, but a lot of the legwork is what we want to be able to do. Think of like having a um, I don't want to talk about replacement because that's not what we're all about. We're about like empowering the existing members of your team to do more, to spend more time with investors. So yeah, part of it is like automating all the tasks that like folks don't want to do, that are low like value add, um, and then plugging into uh, plugging into models to make it easy to connect, Vessel to Claude or different tools. So that's where having an MCP and API like comes into play.
Maybe just to wrap up here, looking back, let's say, I mean, I'm sure there's still a long way to go, but looking back, what is something that surprised you really, that you didn't anticipate, building Vessel?
Yeah, we
everything?
started Vessel when the AI tools were still like fairly, or like AI usage was still fairly nascent in a
Hmm.
commercial like kind of context.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, we've been sort of amazed by how productive small teams can be with things like Quad Code or like Figma's AI. Like we've been like completely building differently versus the first year that we were building Vessel. I didn't expect us to get to the stage like that quickly.
Right. Well, happy to hear, Thierry. I'm excited for you guys on what's next. I appreciate you coming on, telling us a bit more about what you guys are doing. Where can people find you? Is it on LinkedIn or?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Thierry Ajaltouni, like that's as simple as that. Or learn more about Vessel on vessel.co. A lot of like customer stories there, some webinars that could be interesting for folks that want to hear from how I guess like other more established fund managers are thinking about fundraising and
Mm.
investor relations.
Yeah, the community, I think the fund manager community, I think could be something very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks a lot, Thierry. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ramsey.
All right. Have a good day. Bye bye.